I've always been fascinated by human behavior. I wanted to understand my own behavior, I wanted to be able to change my own behavior, and I wanted to be able to persuade other people to change their behavior. And then I wanted to be able to teach that process to other people. So I studied so many aspects of human behavior. I studied social influence, persuasion, seduction, deception, human-computer interaction. And I put this into practice in a site called I Will Teach You to Be Rich. And I was actually sober when I created the name of that site. I was a college student. But it started off talking about money, but money is just a small part of living a rich life, right? It's all about all aspects of life. It can be about entrepreneurship, careers, negotiation, travel, relationships, fitness. And as I started this site, I had the same challenges that so many of my creative friends have. I started the blog as a hobby. I wrote it for free for 3 years. I was petrified of charging, and when I finally did charge, I was terrified of what would happen. I want to tell you about that in a minute. But what I want to do today is fast forward for a second. The blog now hosts about 500,000 readers a month. We send millions of emails every month. People buy these very premium courses and really change their behavior using the psychology-based curriculum that we create. So I'll talk a little bit about the business, but what I really want to talk about is how I learned to value myself and how I taught my students, clients, students, you can call them whatever you want, how I taught my students to revere the work that I was doing. So the first thing I ever charged for was a $4.95 ebook called Ramits' 2007 Guide to Kicking Ass. I have a weird thing about titles. And I was very nervous. In fact, if you look up my sales copy, which is still online, it's the worst sales copy you've ever seen. I actually apologize for charging. I say, oh, I know you could probably find stuff like this for free, but come on, guys. It's horrible. And I had such low self-esteem that this thing would even sell that I didn't even create a fulfillment system. I just thought 50 people would buy it, so I just emailed it to them once I got the PayPal. And in fact, my fears came true. When I released this thing, people said, you can look at the comments. They said, you're a sellout, you've jumped the shark. Oh, I will teach you to be rich. How about I will teach me to be rich? And I was like, oh my God. And it's in the pit of your stomach, right? You think about the first time you ever tried to charge for your skills or your services. But at the same time, while there was that loud vocal minority, people were buying it. And the people who were buying it were actually reading it and emailing me and taking action on what they had learned. So I was like, whoa, wait a minute, there's something interesting here. At the same time, I was also creating my service offering. So I was becoming a consultant, starting off at a very modest level, and I wanted to move up the value chain. I wanted to offer more, I wanted to charge more, I wanted to work with better clients. And what happened was the clients, as I tried to raise my rates and raise my value, how many of us have been through this? They would look at me, their eyes would glaze over. They would laugh me out of the room, or they would say, why would I pay you for that? My cousin can do that for $100. I'm like, okay, something is going wrong here. So I wanted to study how other people were doing this in all different areas of business. And I ended up coming to a lot of my friends who were creatives, and I started studying a lot of the psychology of what holds us back from moving up the value chain. And one of the beliefs I believe we have that is so deep it's almost an invisible script is this idea of if I just get better. If I just get better at my craft, then the accolades will come and my rate will go up and I don't have to deal with these clients who are always haggling over price. If I just get better. And what I learned was, yes, as you move up that chain, yes, you have to get better. As I went from charging $20 an hour to $500 to $3,000 an hour, yes, your skills certainly need to move up that rate. But I could be the best at asset allocation or salary negotiation in the world. That alone doesn't mean that I'm going to get the business results that I want for me and for my students. So what I realized was there's something more beyond just our craft. I think as creative people, we always focus on our craft, sometimes to the exclusion of other things. And I want to talk about just 3 simple strategies that I learned that have nothing to do with my craft, that have helped me really grow my business, and again, more importantly, teach my students to revere my work. So the first one is mastering the psychology of language. I'm always fascinated by hearing the way people talk about topics, especially emotionally evocative topics, right? Whether it's dating or finding a job, starting their first business. I always want to know, like, what'd you say? Oh, how did she react? because it tells you a lot about people. There's a very sophisticated marketer named Eben Pagan who talks about the fallacy of experts. How as experts, we become really good at something and we want to create a service or product, so we retreat into our office and we kind of take out a piece of paper and verbally vomit or write down all the stuff we know, we organize it, we've got a table of contents. Okay, here's my book, here's my product, here's my service. Then we go back out to the world and we offer it, and they don't listen. Again, their eyes glaze over, or they have these weird words they use like, oh yeah, I really should take a look at that. Code for, I'm never gonna look at that. So why? Why is this happening? I wanted to understand how language works in this process. Does anyone here have a partner, a romantic partner or a friend who in some ways knows you better than you know yourself? Anyone have that experience? That is my goal when I work with my students, so that when they read my copy, when they go through my products, they say, wow, how did he know I was going to say that? And in fact, we test for that when we test our copy. I want to show you something, an example here. This is from the Wall Street Journal. This is their how-to guide on personal finance. Just take a look at it. Let's say you wanted to learn a little bit about money. Anyone here have their eyes glazing over right now? Uh-huh. Now, these are experts who put this together. Why doesn't it resonate with us? Let me suggest that no one in the history of the world has ever woken up and said, yeah, today I want to learn the difference between corporate and municipal bonds. Never. They don't talk like that. What do we talk like? We say things like, shit, I have $10,000 of credit card debt. Or, I just had my second kid. How am I going to pay for their college? Or even, I have $5,000 in my checking account. What am I supposed to do with this money? Right? These are the ways we talk about things. And yet the way that, as experts, we relate to people is we create an encyclopedic approach. That is a big mistake, because they may be technically correct, but it will never reach the audience. This is the back cover of my book. I made a mistake. I didn't catch this in the copy review. Can anyone see the mistake on the back cover? Let me give you a hint. Nobody ever woke up and said, yeah, I want to be financially literate today. What do they say? I want to be rich, right? I don't want to improve my core strength. I want a six-pack, right? This is the way we talk, and it is profoundly important, because we can sit around and say, look, you know, I know that it's a matter of diet and this and that, and that's true. You need to give people what they need, but you also need to address what they want. We do this through research, extensive research. For our courses, we'll collect usually 75,000 to 100,000 data points before a course ever sees the light of day. We'll test it iteratively. You don't need that many data points. We started off doing 20 data points, but we collected in all different ways. We collected through surveys, phone calls, in person, et cetera, one-on-ones. For us, the research process is the secret sauce of the business. It's what allows us to charge 100 times what our competitors charge and get really great results. I'm going to give you a quick case study on this from the other side of the table, talking about language. So I was recently hiring someone to run my support organization. And I knew that I would get a lot of applications because everyone thinks that they're great at customer support. But I needed a way to filter it out, okay? And it's impossible for me to judge someone's skills on the first round. I just need a way to filter people out. So, I mean, I'm gonna talk about the perspective of the client here, because in this case, I was the client. So what I did was I sent a note out to my email list, and I had an application. There were 10 questions. Really, all I cared about was number 7. Number 7 says, which metrics do you see as most important for measuring customer service? This is the only question I cared about. I skipped right to it. The correct answer, someone who has deep experience in this area would know certain words. They would know certain phrases like one and dones, right? Response time, coverage. These are words that my dream hire would know. And yet out of 412 responses, only 2 gave me those words. Now the distasteful part of this is that I skipped over a ton of people who were probably great. They're very technically skilled. But because they didn't speak my language, I had no way of knowing. It just didn't connect. So the importance of language can't be overstated. If we're not speaking in our client's language, in our prospect's language, we've already lost the game. Strategy number 2 is, what do you do with that language once you know it? I talked about the partner who knows their partner better than anyone else. One of the things that I like to do is really delineate their hopes, fears, and dreams. You know, I have a friend who had 2 kids, and she's super fit. She got in great shape after she had her kids, and so she has a lot of friends that are young mothers. And they go to her and they say, you look amazing, how do you do it? And she used to give them a very straightforward response. She would say, well, you know, I changed my diet, and this is what I do, and I also have this workout regimen. What do you think their response was? Shut down, instantly, right? They would even say key phrases like, well, I'm Asian, I can't give up rice. So she's like, what? So she calls me, because she knows I have some experience in dealing with people who know what they should do but don't do it. And she goes, why are they, they asked me the question, and then they're shutting me down. And I said, let me ask you a question. Do they ask you for anything? She goes, yeah. I go, let me guess, they want your recipes. She goes, yeah, how'd you know? See, in behavioral change, people often want what's called a magic bullet, something that they believe will solve all their problems. In weight loss, or in this case specifically, it's recipes. Like, give me the recipes and everything else will take care of itself. Wrong, but they believe that it's true. In careers, they believe that if you teach me how to improve my resume, I can find my dream job. Now that's part of it, just like the recipes are part of it, so you can't deny that. But you have to give them what they need as well as what they want. What they want is the recipes. What they need is to overcome their fear. So if she had never addressed their fear, no tactic would have ever mattered. You see what I'm saying? So when we're trying to serve our clients, we can give them all the solutions we want, we can give them amazing proposals, but if we don't address their hopes, especially fears and dreams, it goes in one ear and out the other. Anyone know what the fear would be for someone thinking of losing weight after having a couple kids? I mean, there are a lot of fears. One fear is that this won't work for me. Another fear is that I'm going to have to cut out the things I love for the rest of my life. That's enough to get you to just say, oh, I can't give up rice. This is the cover of my book. People hate money books because it makes them feel guilty about themselves. They've usually failed with money before, and perhaps most perniciously, they believe that some dude, some weird-looking Indian dude, is going to tell them what you can't do for the rest of your life. You see why the copy says, just a 6-week program that works? It addresses their fears before they've even surfaced consciously. And that's all a result of research. Right? So you bake it into every aspect of the service offering. I want to do an exercise for a second. We call this the 5-minute straitjacket technique. We'll do an abbreviated version. Let's everyone close your eyes for a minute. Pretend that you are evaluating 3 or 4 people to help you with your money. Just close your eyes, and I'm one of them. You say, I've heard something about this Ramit guy. We're sitting across a desk from each other. You bring me your finances. We're looking over. You're trying to say, like, am I spending too much? Am I saving for retirement? I'm going to have kids. What about that? What are your unspoken fears? Your unspoken concerns? Should you choose me? Should you choose someone else? Should you do it yourself? What are the fears? The hopes, the dreams, but mostly the fears. What is making you worry about going forward with this decision? Okay, everybody open your eyes. Money is a pretty intimate topic. There are a few topics of that level of intimacy. See, most of us never stopped to think about that. I didn't. I used to have a handout that was called like 4 pillars of personal finance. It was so logical and rational, and it never worked. People would take one look at it, this sucks, throw it away. Until I started understanding fears about money, and there are a lot. All of us have clients who have fears about working with us. Maybe they worry that we're not going to do a good job, we're going to embarrass them, we're not going to be responsive enough. Very rarely is it just the quality of the work. That's my point today, is the craft matters, but all these other things matter just as much. Okay, strategy number 3, you're speaking their language, you're understanding their hopes, fears, and dreams. We wanted to become their trusted advisor. One of my mentors, Jay Abraham, has a strategy called the strategy of preeminence. I would recommend everybody look it up. It's incredibly powerful. It's about putting your clients at the center of your world, even if it causes you harm in the short term. Think about this. how do you demonstrate to your clients that you are almost their sword and shield, that you're out there fighting the battle for them and protecting them? How do you do that? Do you communicate that to them? Do they know that you have their best interests at heart? I want to tell you how we do this, but I think that all of us should be thinking about how to not only protect our clients, but let them know that we're doing it. So as you move up the value chain, one thing that we discovered is it's more and more important to be crisper and crisper about who you serve and who you don't serve. So if you ever join my newsletter, you would see me sending emails that say, look, if you're interested in frugality, this is not the site for you. Here are some better sites. I recommend that you unsubscribe and go check those out. So people are like, wait a minute, this dude is telling me not to read his stuff? What's up with this? But for the people who are interested in frugality, they're like, thank you. I don't want to read this guy's stuff. Goodbye. And it's a win for both of us. I tell people, if you're looking to just skim my emails, please unsubscribe. I'm not your intellectual entertainment. I don't want to waste your time. I don't want you to waste mine. Here's the button. So that causes higher than usual unsubscribe rates, but the people that stay are highly engaged. There's also one other thing we do, which is to really show people who we want and who we don't. One of my policies is I don't accept anyone with credit card debt from joining my flagship programs. So the simple framework I have for persuasion, I think, as you get better and better at persuading people, you can use that for all different kinds of purposes. My basic framework is, if people assume they had all the information, all the motivation in the world, and they were rational, just for a minute, would they make this decision? So if someone in $25,000 of credit card debt understood interest rates, would they really join my $3,000 course? Probably not. Probably not. They'd focus on their debt. But if someone with $20K in the bank said, I really like your course on finding my dream job or raising my rates or whatever, but I'm a little nervous. Do I have enough time? I don't know if this will work for me. So it's fear holding them back. And I know, because I've tested it, that my stuff works and I have a refund policy and all that stuff. Then it's my obligation. It's my obligation to be as aggressive as possible about getting them to join that course. So I'm crystal clear about who I want and don't want. Here's the actual copy from one of my emails. This is live in my funnel. It says, should I join if I have credit card debt? No. Pay off your debt first. That single decision costs me over $1 million a year. But it's the right thing to do. I tell them, and I explain why. I say, look, get my book from the library or get someone else's book. Pay off your debt. When you are ready, come back. So in this case, putting them at the center of my world and letting them know. And that brings me to the final point. Teaching them to revere what we do. Anyone had this experience where you create a concept or a design, whatever it may be, and you've spent a ton of time on it, you've done a ton of research, you present it to the client, and they don't value what you've done. They kind of just see what's on the paper, but they don't see all the work that's gone into it. I've had this experience way too many times, and I realized it was my fault. I understood their language. I understood their hopes, fears, and dreams. I put them at the center of my world, but I didn't teach them to revere what I was doing. They treated me like some random email subscription that they were signed up for, or some guy who tells funny jokes on my email list. That was my fault, not theirs. So I started taking a totally different positioning stance and being really clear about the value that I was offering them. So all the things I was doing, I just made sure to tell them that I was doing it. Let me give you an example. I did an interview with another one of my mentors, BJ Fogg. I spent 16 hours preparing for this interview. I'm a huge weirdo, so I got my old college textbooks, prepared, spent a ton of money on production, and then I told them about it. I said, look, this is free to you, but if you find it useful, I ask you to do a couple of things. And the first thing I said is, treat it like something you spent $1,000 on, because I could sell it for that much, but I don't. I'm giving it to you with my compliments. And then at the bottom, I said, look, I invested thousands of dollars and a lot of work to put this together. It's yours free, because I know that by investing in you now, you'll be back to invest in my work and yourself, whether it's my free stuff or my premium stuff. In other words, and we tested this, and when you see positioning like this, it's not just a free recording, right? It's a product of all the work, all the skills you've done. You're teaching your clients to revere the work you've done. At this point, if you do charge for something later, price becomes a mere triviality. It's not about price, because it's about trust. You speak their language, you know their hopes, fears, and dreams, right? And you're working with them to protect them. And best of all, you let them know. So with all this said, just to wrap, The craft is important. It's incredibly important. But all these things that we tend to forget about are equally as important, if not more. Thank you very much.